All right. Okay. We're talking about transports in plants for this biology lesson. First lesson 9.1 Transport systems in dicotyledonous plants. Okay, how do I do this? Here we go. So, ignore this bit. It's just basically that just tells you plant systems work with very high pressures. So, we don't actually really need to know that. But just maybe note to yourself they deal with very high pressures because in the human, we deal with, in arteries, we deal with 16 kilopascals. That's quite a lot. But plants, they work with 2,000. Yeah. Oh, and then steam turbines, so in power stations, they deal with 4,000. So this is half of a freaking steam turbine. Kind of good to keep in mind. Anyways, the need for plant transport systems. There are three main reasons why multicellular plants need transport systems. It says right here, metabolic demands, the cells of the green parts of the plants, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Basically, all you need to know is plants, different parts of the plant produce different things. For example, you got the tree. The leaves make glucose. Okay. They make glucose. The roots do not make glucose. But the roots need energy. So that means the glucose has got to go from the leaves down to the roots, right? How does it do that? With transport system. The leaves don't get water. In fact, the leaves have the stomata and the water leaves, right? The roots get the water. But the whole plant needs water. So the roots' water needs to go up to throughout the entire plant, all the way up, all the leaves, everything, okay? That's why you need transport systems, okay? Metabolic demands, well, different parts need lots of stuff. Size, some plants are small and they need to like reproduce and stuff like that. Surface area, obviously different things have more surface area to volume ratios, are better at making energy, blah, 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 blah. Need for plants, transport system. Different parts produce different things. The entire plant needs these things. Glucose in the leaves needs to go throughout the entire plant. All you need to know. Right, now, moving on. Next one. Here we go. Transport in dicotyledonous plants. This is going to be the first main thing that we need to learn here. Dicotyledonous plants. What is a dicotyledonous plant, you ask? Dicotyledonous plants, also known as dicots. We will be referring to them as dicots because it's so much easier than saying dicotyledonous. Okay? They are a seed that contain two cotyledons. Now, in biology, the way to learn biology, I think, is with flashcards. Because biology is lots of random facts that make complete sense, but there's loads of them. What do you have to do? You have to flashcard it, okay? Dicotyledonous plants. They are plants, seeds, which contain two cotyledons. Put that on a flashcard. Boom. Flashcard 1. Now you'd be asking, well, what is a cotyledon? Next flashcard. What is a cotyledon? Answer to that is organs that act as food stores for developing embryo, plant and form the first leaves when seed germinates. That is a lot to say. Basically, when you plant a seed, it comes out of the ground, and it forms the first little leaves. In cotyledons, there's 2 leaves. Now, you ask, okay, well, what's that got to do? Those are like slightly special leaves. They are cotyledons, they're not called leaves. Okay, what are they there for? They act as food stores, okay? So if there's lots of food in the plant, right, it needs to put it somewhere. It gets these little leaves when it first starts off, and boom, it can put them in the leaves. But they also can act as what's it called? As energy, because they're leaves. They photosynthesize. They produce energy for the plant to start growing. That is a cotyledon. So what you have to know. Dicotyledonous plants contain 2 cotyledons, and cotyledons are the first leaves that pop out the ground. Nice. Now, there are two types of dicots: herbaceous dicots, and there are arborescent dicots. Herbaceous, arborescent. The ones that you need to know for biology are herbaceous. So we need to go through that, but get a little bit of knowledge on arborescent ones. So herbaceous dicots, they are dicotyledonous plants, dicots, with soft tissue and a relatively short life cycle. Put that on a flashcard. Now, arborescent dicots, on the other hand, they're described as woody. They have hard lignified tissues and a long life cycle. Put that on a flashcard. Now, we're going to be talking about lignified tissues quite a bit. Lignin is the thing that makes it into a lignified tissue. Lignin is something which just makes it's quite a solid, it's quite strong, and it's waterproof. So when it's a lignified tissue, it means it's become quite strong. It's tougher. Yes, we only need to be looking at herbaceous dicots. So in dicotyledonous plants, in dicots, they have a series of transport vessels. So like in a human, you've got lots of blood veins, the arteries, the heart, you've got this whole system going on. And we call that the circulatory system. In plants, it's called the vascular system. You could just write, what is the system in plants for transport? What is the transport system in plant? The vascular system. Now, the vascular system. In herbaceous dicots, this is made up of two main types of transport vessels. Like in a human, the veins, they are vessels. The arteries, they are vessels. So what are the vessels in the human one? Is the xylem and the phloem. Should know this from GCSE. Now, the xylem and the phloem. So in the human, you just got veins and arteries everywhere. In plants, because they've got a bit more of not like a random, it's a little bit more structured. So these little xylems and phloems form in these things called vascular bundles. Vascular bundles. As they go, for instance, up the main bit of the stem, it goes up in a leaf. You got the middle line, that big fat tough bit. That bit's got these vascular bundles in them. That's all it is. And yeah, you've got to know that. Next is this. Then we've got to learn a bit about the structure of vascular bundles, because in different dicots, they have different things, different formations. In young herbaceous dicots, the stem, this is the stem, okay? In the stem, the vascular bundles are around the edge. As you can see here, you got this plant right here, and they're all around on the outside, okay? What does this do? Because we know that the, where is it? No. There, you'll learn that the vascular bundles, the vascular vessels are actually quite tough. So by putting them on the outside, sort of creates a tough area, and it just strengthens the plant. Remember, this is a young herbaceous stem, the young stem, so it needs to be able to just pop out the ground, but be strong enough to withstand things and actually live to the point where it can grow nice and big, Now, in the root of a young herbaceous plant, this time is the root, not the stem, you'll notice that the vascular bundle is in the middle. And the middle, to help the plant withstand the tugging and strains that result as the stem leaves are blown in the wind. Okay, we need a picture. You got the ground here, and you got this little plant coming out. Nice, nice, nice. And then wind comes and pushes it. Okay, the roots under here, they've got to make sure that the plant doesn't just die. It needs to hold it in place. But how does it do that? Like smartly, right? It needs to do it in the best possible way. Evolution, right? Okay, it puts these vascular bundles into the middle. And then what that creates is, if you sort of picture like a tube, right? And then you've got this one bit in the middle, right? You can bend it, because these ones, the outside ones, these stretch, right? They stretch. The middle bit doesn't stretch. So what that allows for is like some slight bending. Whilst if you go back to the stem here, if they're on the outside, and then you've got this soft bit in the middle, because the hard stuff is on the outside, it doesn't allow for much bending. Okay, remember the roots have to the roots are probably wiggling around as this thing's wiggling around. Okay, so it needs to be able to make sure it doesn't break and the roots don't just snap. The best way is by having them in the middle. For some extra knowledge, well, not extra knowledge, this all needs to be put on flashcards. There's one thing of having someone yap to you about it. There's another thing of you need to just get to know this knowledge. All these little bits here, all these little things here, they all need to be written down. You need to get them onto flashcards somehow and learn them, because that's the only way. Now we have the dicot leaf in the leaves. Told you earlier, you got the plant, you got the leaf, sort of like that shape, and then you got the thick bit in the middle. This is called the midrib. It's the nice tough bit. It's got the vascular bundles in them. They are the main. It's the main vein for the leaf. It carries all the xylem and the phloem, so all the food and water can get to the leaves as well. But then also, it's quite tough, if you notice, you know. And when you pick up a leaf, it doesn't just flop. It actually holds a shape because of all these little veins and all these big veins, right? They all form a strong structure, and the leaf just stays wide open. I'm guessing that is beneficial for photosynthesis. You know, it doesn't just curl up. It actually nice and wide, lots of sunlight on it. So yeah, that's something to note. That's a note. It supports the structure of the leaf. Get that all down on flashcards. That is the only way to learn this stuff. Moving on. So we've now talked about like the vascular system a bit. We're now going to be going more specific. In the vascular system, what is there? What are the two main transporting vessels? Xylem and phloem. Okay, let's talk about the xylem. Xylem is a non-living tissue. You should have learned this in GCSEs. It's a non-living tissue. Most of it is just dead. Okay, put that down. It has two main functions in the plant. This is quite important. It transports water and mineral ions. Now, what do you remember? You remember that the roots take up water, and you remember that the roots take in mineral ions. Okay, so what does that tell us about where it's coming from? It's coming from the bottom of the plant in the roots. You know, you've got the ground, all the roots, and then you've got the plant, right? So in the xylem, the transport of the water and the mineral ions is up. It goes from the roots up the plant. It doesn't go down, it only goes up. You need to note that. Now, the xylem is made up of several types of cells, most of which are dead. Xylem vessels, okay? So the xylem is the entire structure. The xylem is made of xylem vessels. They are the main structure of the xylem. They are strong, hollow structures made by several columns of cells fusing together end by end. And we have a nice little picture here. Okay. What you'll notice is it's like you can see it's line down here. It's a hollow tube. Boom. Okay. But actually, what it is it's a cell here. Another cell here. Another cell here. And what happens is the ends of the cell, as it states in the thing, they are long, hollow structures made by several columns of cells fusing together end to end. They fuse and they open these gaps. Now this allows simply for the water to just go through without, because obviously, there's a wall here. The water can't get up. So the cells fuse, get rid of the middle bit, up. That's all it is. That's all it is. Now, right, now that we know that the xylem is just xylem vessels, again, like I said, xylem vessels, boom, boom, boom. Now we need to talk about there are two other tissues in the xylem. There is a thick-walled xylem. It's called parenchyma. Right here, parenchyma. Okay, it's an odd name. Now, what this one does is it packs around the xylem vessels. So those are the ones we just looked at. It packs around them. And these packs, they store food. And they contain tannin deposits. We'll get to tannin in a second. So this is the diagram for it. So obviously these are the tube, these little tubes here, these tubes. That's those there. Ooh. Okay. So these are the xylem vessels. So this one's xylem vessel. Now these here, as labeled, is the parenchyma. They just pack themselves in between these little xylems. And yeah, they store food and they store tannin deposits. That's it. You just got to know it. It's quite easy to understand, it just packs around it, but you've just got to know them. All these little details. So flashcard them, spam those flashcards. Tannin deposits. They contain tannin deposits. Now, what is tannin? You may ask. Okay. Tannin is a bitter, astringent-tasting chemical that protects plant tissues from attack by herbivores. Okay. Notice how it says herbivores. Herbivores, what does that mean? Plant eating. They eat plants, right? And it protects the plant from being eaten. And we've also been told that it tastes bitter. Basically, it tastes shit. Tannin tastes shit. Therefore, herbivore will not eat the plant because it tastes shit. That's tannin. Good job. Write that down. Right. Next bit. Xylem. And then we have to go to the next page. Now, xylem fibers are long cells with lignified, remember lignin makes it strong and waterproof, secondary walls. They're fibers along with lignified secondary walls that provide extra mechanical strength. Remember, as I said, lignin makes it strong and waterproof. So if it's strong and waterproof, it's strong. It means it's going to give it extra strength. That's all there is. However, you need to remember this. Xylem fibers. Okay, let me just put xylem. Okay. The xylem is the thing that carries the water. The xylem vessels are those bits where the water goes up. Okay. The xylem parenchyma things which pack around. Yeah. Now we have xylem fibers. Okay. Xylem fibers. They do not transport water. They are purely there for mechanical strength. That's it. They just make the thing strong so it doesn't break. Does not transport water. Okay. Now, we're talking about lignin now. I talked about it. I said it briefly, like what it is before, because it doesn't tell you for some reason here. It just says lignin can be laid down in the walls of the xylem in several different ways. It can form rings, spirals, and relatively solid tubes. Lignin is things that makes it a bit tough and waterproof. Okay, and if you have the xylem and you have waterproof like this, okay, all this lignin down the side, then the water will just go up. It doesn't bother. It's like, oh, I don't want to go there. It's waterproof. It's hydrophobic. Okay. But then, if you see the description here, you've got the xylem vessel, and it forms rings. It can form rings of lignin, like that. And it can also form spirals. Spiral. Yeah. So it's just like just a spiral of lignin. That's what it is. Now what this does, these little spirals or relatively solid tubes. There, that's the xylem. And then you just got like tubes of lignin, just all the way. Boom, boom. A tube of lignin right there. All that does is makes it a bit stronger and waterproof. So the water just flows up the xylem. It doesn't leave the xylem. It doesn't like osmosis out. You know, it just boop, goes up. However, with lots of small unlignified areas, unlignified, no lignin, called bordered pits, you have the xylem. You maybe have a disc, the ring, and then you have another ring. And then you just got this area here with no lignin. What if I'm saying lignin's waterproof? Oh, but this bit's got no lignin. That's where the water leaves. So water's coming up from the roots, and it's like, oh, we've reached a branch. Let's go this way. Oh, leaf. Let's go that way. Right? It allows for the water to then escape. That's what those unlignified areas do. Those areas are called bordered pits. Remember, bordered pits. This is where water leaves the xylem and moves into other cells of the plant, as just explained. That's everything you need to know about xylem. However, you can only know that if you just know it. So, know it with, well, you don't have to do flashcards, but flashcards definitely a good way of doing it. Moving on to the structure of functions of the phloem. Now, unlike the xylem, the phloem is living. The xylem is dead. Phloem is living. And what does the phloem do? It transports food around the plant, okay? But in the form of organic solutes. So that means the food is dissolved into some sort of solution, and then it moves around in this solution. Right? Well, I don't know if it's like solution, but it's just in the form of organic solutes, right? And it just up and down the plant. Up and down. You know I said up and down? Yeah, unlike the xylem, the flow of materials in the phloem can go both up and down. Remember, xylem goes roots to the top, doesn't go down. Phloem needs to go from the leaves down. But it can also go up because it's special. Okay. Now, moving on. The main transport vessel. So remember how in the xylem, the main vessel for the xylem was the xylem vessel. You know, those little tubes. Okay. In the phloem, it's not the phloem vessel. In the phloem, it is sieve tube elements. They're pretty much the sort of like the same thing. However, xylem, little walls like this, which broke apart, if you remember. In the sieve tube elements, you got the walls like that, a sieve tube, and you know, before they were like a bunch of cells. But this time, rather than just like chopping off the middle like that, okay, what they do is they form sieve plates. Okay. Sieve plates right here. Sieve plates. Sieve tube elements, they form sieve plates, and it's better shown down here. Okay. So again, like the xylem, you've got the little, this is what the cells were, right? They join end to end, boom. Now these, each one of these, they're the sieve tube elements, okay? But if you notice, okay, boom. It's not just a little nib like that. It's also this. And then if you go to a more 3D perspective, this is the sieve tube. It's just holes in the wall, like that. And boom, same down here. Let's just get rid of this black mark. Boom, it's just holes. And then what does that allow for? It allows for movement up and down. It just allows for it to go through. Okay? That's all it is. Again, really simple to understand. But you got to know it. These are the sieve plates because they're like plates. And they're sieves because they got holes in them. And this is the sieve tube element. Boom. Very simple to understand. Quite easy, actually. But just again, lots of random bits of knowledge that you need to know. You got to know that the sieve plates and the sieve tubes. You can't not know them. Okay. Now, when these phloem, these sieve tube elements form, They go like this, you know, they got the little like this. Oh, but then they do the whole thing where they all of a sudden start creating little gaps, right? When those pores, okay, when those pores appear, okay, as it says, when those pores appear, as the large pores appear in these cell walls, the tonoplast, so that's the vacuole membrane, the nucleus, and some of the other organelles break down. Okay, so in the sieve tube, in the cell, this cell, the nucleus is gone, the organelles are gone, the vacuole membrane, the tonoplast just breaks down. And you're like, okay, well that's cool and all. It breaks down, but then how does this cell, how does it live? If it doesn't have a nucleus, if it doesn't have those things, how does it actually function? You know, because normally it would just die. But remember, it's a living, phloem's living. Companion cells. Just extra, even more knowledge to know. These companion cells, okay? That's these guys right here. They link with the sieve tube elements, okay? Create these little tiny, tiny channels, microscopic channels, as they like to say right here, called plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata. You have got to know that, okay? Now, what does that mean? It means the cell walls are sort of like, they're there, but they're kind of gone in some areas. They create the little channels. And their cytoplasm, the cytoplasm of this cell, through these little microscopic channels, can mix with this one, right? So in this companion cell, it's got the nucleus, it's got everything, right? And so what it can do is it gets how it functions, boom, all there, and it gives some to here. It doesn't like give the nucleus, but the support system, it just allows for this cell to live by supporting it with its own stuff. That's it. As said here, it is the life support system for the sieve tube elements, because they've lost all their stuff. They've lost their function as normal cells, and they need to live. They need to receive their thing somehow, and they do it with companion cells. Now, the final thing that you need to know is phloem tissues. Other phloem tissues, they also contain supporting tissues, similar to the xylem. The xylem fibers, they're purely there to make it strong. Same in the phloem. They include fibers and sclerides. Simply, they are cells with extremely thick cell walls. What are cell walls? They are cellulose. What is cellulose? Cellulose cell walls, what do we know about them? They're strong. And if you've got something strong, and now it's an extremely thick, strong thing, that means it's extremely strong. Thus, supporting the phloem. And that's why the phloem just doesn't break down. That's why the xylem doesn't break down. They've got support, they've got all these little weird things which just make them what they are. And you've got to know them all for A-level biology. Yeah, thank you. We'll see you in the next one, guys.